Very early in the series, I said that a good portion of games usually have better sequels, and Mass Effect 2 is one of those games in which the sequel majorly outperforms the original games, much like Assassin's Creed 2, Little Big Planet 2, Resistance 2. There's no question, this game was absolutely amazing when you compare it to the original. I mean, who knows, maybe that leaves hope one day the YouTube order will be replaced with something different and I won't have to tell him to go fuck himself. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, I only got to play the download port of Mass Effect well after I already finished parts 2 and 3. It was a bad port, a dated game, so it really isn't fair to compare it to the sequels, but unfortunately, that's the reality of what it's up against. Now, when Mass Effect 2 announced that it was being published by EA, the immediate reaction was that the game was going to be coming to PlayStation 3. EA is not one to turn down an easy dollar. So Microsoft would have had to fork over a boatload of cash just to keep it exclusive. Otherwise, the game was coming to PlayStation 3. Microsoft didn't pay EA's ransom, so us PlayStation 3 owners got the good news that we were hoping for, and Mass Effect 2 was coming to our console. Pretty much this is what people predicted would happen to Titanfall, but that doesn't seem to be the case that's happening right now. In any event, not only was it coming to PlayStation 3, but we were getting the super duper motherfucker edition that had all the DLC already on the disc, and it was being ported on the brand new Mass Effect engine that Mass Effect 3 was being developed on. 360 owners initially bought the game, then had to pay all the DLC packs afterwards, and they had the older engine that created the first game. PlayStation 3 owners got all the DLC on one disc for the $60 price tag. Although we had to wait a year after the 360 got their version of the game, it was well worth the price. The only DLC PlayStation 3 owners had to pay for was the actual one you're seeing in the background called The Arrival, which was released for all platforms after PlayStation 3 players got their copy of the game. And on a quick side note, the footage in the background was really the only thing I could find in the game without having to start over again. All my save data and all my careers were already at the end game, and they only gave me about 8 to 10 minutes of footage up in this motherfucker, and most of that shit was cutscenes, so I really couldn't use that without starting over from the very beginning. So this save data was the only one that I could use in the game because I didn't want to have to start shit all the way from the beginning again. Although in using this means I have to miss out on that fine ass that they gave Miranda. Now, oddly enough, this is the same exact mission I used in my own Hipfire commentary a few years ago, so in case this shit looks similar, that's why it feels like you're probably seeing it for a second time. But getting back into the game, PlayStation 3 got a great deal 1 year later, but at the same time, we also received another shitty port. Although we got an update on the new engine and it had much better character models, better textured backgrounds, the game still had its share of hiccups. The main storyline ran pretty smooth in Mass Effect 2, aside from the usual bad porting shit, you know, like screen tearing, slowdowns in major battles and whatnot. But the bigger issues came from the DLC packs, like Zaid and Katsumi's packs. Those missions were all fucked up when you played through them. For the characters being invisible during talking scenes, the frame rate drops, the collision detection was fucking awful. We'll just say, the DLC ports weren't as polished as the regular main campaign port. Now, some people on PlayStation 3 mentioned corrupt files and not being able to save the game and making it basically unplayable for them, and thankfully, that is something I never experienced. I had a few freezing issues for the most part, the occasional frame rate drop, but that was nowhere near as bad as the Mass Effect 1 digital port. That shit was just fucking terrible. I mean, this wasn't ideal, but it's certainly not as bad as, say, a Black Ops 1 port. BioWare also improved the combat, changed the power wheel, the leveling system, and how players rank up in this motherfucker. You know, they gave you better control of your sidekicks, and pretty much took all the mistakes Mass Effect 1 made with the combat and fixed them into a better third-person shooter game. Mass Effect 3 eventually went on to refine the mechanics, but obviously that's in tomorrow's video. But the minor change the game made actually made more sense to me after playing Mass Effect 1. And Mass Effect 2 was initially coming to PlayStation 3. I had to do my research on the game, how it functioned, and I needed to learn specifically about how the 6 classes worked. Yesterday's video mentioned that 3 of the classes were base classes, while the other 3 were a combination of the base classes. In this game, they decided to give the 3 combo classes some individual powers to make them really unique. Although they had unique powers in Mass Effect 1, now they really feel like a different class. The Infiltrator was given Tactical Cloak, which really separated as the one sniper class in the game. Vanguard was given the Charge, which highlighted the fact that it was supposed to be an up-close and personal ass-kicker of a class. And the Sentinel was given Tech Armor to act much more of a tank than other classes, although it really didn't do much tanking in this motherfucker. Oh man, that class was so fucking worth. But anyway, Soldier, Engineer, and Adept, they weren't changed too much, and they maintained their roles pretty much from Mass Effect 1. But in making the tweaks to the other 3 classes, now you felt like you had 6 unique classes instead of just 3 specific classes and 3 combination classes. In playing the PlayStation 3 version, I didn't have a chance to play the original, so I had to do the interactive comic at the beginning of this game. The comic acted as a fill-in for the choices you had to make in the first game, such as who survived Vermeer, did you help or kill Rex? I mean, seriously, who the fuck would kill Rex? Well, why on the earth would you kill one of the best characters in the game? I'm not gonna get into it. You also had a few choices with what you needed to do in certain missions, as well as your romance partner from the prior game and all that other good shit. Now, since I enjoyed the shit out of this game, I actually played the campaign a total of 4 times, and I had to do that comic 4 times over. And each time, I mix and match some of the things that I did in the prior game. Sometimes I was an asshole, sometimes I was a paragon, sometimes I romanced Ashley, or I took a chick and romanced Liara for some hot alien lesbo action. I certainly got my share of their interactive comic without having to do 4 separate campaigns on Mass Effect 1. And the story itself here gets deeper into the plot with the Reapers trying to kill off the galaxy and whatnot. We get another enemy this time besides just the Geth, and it's the Collectors, which adds a bit more variety to the game. On top of the Collectors, we get some new aliens introduced. We get a variety of different factions that act like enemies, such as the Blue Suns, the Blood Pack, Eclipse, and whatnot. You get to face bigger mechs, some Cerberus enemies, so basically they really increase the variety of what you're actually going to face in this game. And it shows that from the beginning, they were determined to make improvements from the original game. Now, much like the first game, nobody wants to believe Commander Shepard. He's pretty much on his own again to prove to the galaxy that he is correct. In the game, you get to recruit a shitload of people, and that's the majority of the game. Recruiting missions to get more teammates. After you elect to get these people, or not get them, the choice is yours, you can then do their loyalty missions sometime down the road. The loyalty missions open up their bonus power and allows for one of the better RPG moments of the game. In doing their missions and keeping them loyal, this determines whether or not the characters will live at the end in the final suicide mission. Unlike Mass Effect 1, there were only 6 choices that carried over to Mass Effect 2. The loyalty missions and recruitment missions, though, added a shitload of variation in what the ending would actually be like. Essentially, you decided the fate of 12 different characters, plus even an option as to what happens to either Samara or Morin during the middle of the game. I could kill off all 12 members if I want and essentially fail the final mission. Or I could kill off a few of the ones that I don't like or the ones that fucking annoyed me. Unlike Mass Effect 1, in which you had to choose between Ashley or Kaidan, and if I had the choice, I would have personally killed both of their dumbasses. Now you have the option of saving everyone or killing anyone in particular that you don't want. Honestly, that's a pretty damn good RPG option in the game to offer. Now, in yesterday's video, I mentioned that going Paragon or Renegade in the game means you need to stay on track with that for the entire game because of how many points the game wants you to have during certain missions. If you play it ambiguously during the game, being charming to some people and a dick to others, that could hurt your chances at the loyalty missions. Some loyalty missions, like Zaid, require a very high Paragon or a very high Renegade score to keep Zaid loyal. Other missions, not so much, but I have to say, being morally ambiguous is probably the most realistic way of playing the game, because there are times you need to be an understanding person, and other times you need to knock a motherfucker's teeth in. While you certainly can play that way, there's a good chance that in playing both sides, you will not keep all of your members at the end of the game during the suicide mission. I know that obviously with a game this size and the amount of branching options the game offers, it's hard to imagine every single scenario possible, but it was a bit of a letdown that you couldn't play this game as someone in the middle. I'm not a goody-goody by any means. I have no issue cursing out someone who is pissing me off or letting an asshole die because they pissed me the fuck off in the game. But at the same time, I'm not always a hard ass to people, and I will help out those in need. In behaving like that, I don't find the option in the middle that helps people who are respectful and appreciative to me and telling the assholes to go fuck themselves. Personally, I would have loved to have had that option in this game, but I don't have it. I have to go all in as a good guy or all in as an asshole. Now, the romance portion of the game was increased big time. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there are 9 romance options in the games and whatnot. Depending on how you did shit in the first game, that could affect how much ass you get in this game. Now keep in mind, PlayStation 3 players didn't have Mass Effect 1, so we needed to use that comic in a way to romance anyone that we wanted. I mean, just put it this way, when I felt like taking a renegade and being a dick, I romanced Ashley and then killed her off after I already tapped that ass. Hey, it was a no strings attached arrangement of this motherfucker. So when this game came around and Miranda was an option, oh hell yeah, I was tapping that ass. First of all, she's the only woman getting half butt naked at the end of the scene. Everyone else was keeping their clothes on. Tali practically wears a protective condom on her entire body. Jack is batshit crazy, but probably an animal between the sheets. And with her outfit, she's pretty much half butt naked the entire game anyway. Kelly Chambers was okay, but she really didn't do anything. She basically just danced up in this motherfucker. And she was my love interest for my female shepherd that I created, but whatever. Samara was essentially a one-night stand with a 1,000-year-old woman, so I can only imagine how that shit works out. And Morinth would cut your dick off like praying mantis or something. I I mean, put it this way, if you slept with her, you got an immediate mission fail because she kills you up in this motherfucker. And besides that, sorry, only mindfuck you or something. They don't really touch you. Whatever, man. Needless to say, Miranda was the only viable ass tapping option in this game. Now, later in the game, you got the chance to play the Shadow Broker DLC, which is fucking awesome, by the way. No shit. This had to be one of the greatest fucking DLC packs of any game that had ever launched, and it was well worth the time playing that motherfucker. But if you wanted to keep your booty call going with Liara, that was your only chance. If you tag Liara and you now have an interest somewhere else, should be all sad, but hey, you know what? Fuck it. I'm saving the galaxy from an alien invasion, and a man of my importance needs to bust a nut every now and then to relieve that tension and pressure. Hey, you don't want to be part of my crew in the sequel? Oh well, apparently you didn't see how fine Miranda's ass looks in that spandex. But regardless of how good that ass looks, the game doesn't come without its flaws, so it's certainly not perfect. The planet scanning shit for materials was fucking annoying. I mean, granted, you find side missions that way, but trying to find Element Zero that way was fucking irritating. BioWare gives us this grand galaxy to explore, and we spend most of that time playing as a fucking metal detective. And no, really, this planet scanning bullshit is no different than that creepy guy at the beach with a metal detector trying to find quarters in the sand that people drop, man. Next issue is the amount of characters, which was great from a gameplay perspective, but some of them were just absolutely unnecessary. I mean, we really didn't need the DLC characters Zaid and Katsumi. They were of no great impact to the game or the story. Grunt, Thane, and to a smaller extent, Samara and Jack weren't exactly needed either. Granted, you needed at least Samara or Jack at the end of the game to do that bubble or whatever the fuck, but they didn't play a huge role in the game at all. Having that many characters also wasn't necessary for combat also. After all, you can only take in 2 characters at one specific time, and you need to find a good balance of combat, biotic, and tech. Essentially, some characters were just taken for the sake of taking them. For example, Tally and Legion had pretty much identical powers with the ability to use different weapons. Same with Jack and Thane. Some characters just never felt needed in combat, like Tally outside of fighting the guests. She was basically useless. But with Miranda, on the other hand, she had 2 of the most useful abilities in the game with Overload and Warp, and basically you could take out any kind of tech or biotic enemies with those 2 powers. The one other criticism that I must say mainly goes towards being the genre classified as an RPG. The term RPG has really changed over the years. I mean, I know we know what a Japanese RPG is, a Western RPG, action RPG. To me, Mass Effect 2 never felt like a true RPG game. It felt more similar in vein to BioShock, where it was an action shooter with RPG elements. Without an open world exploration or completely unique ways of ranking up a character, the game starts to fall into the category of a shooter with RPG elements. I mean, just look at the number of things that this game semi-restricts. Exploration. This has nothing compared to the Wasteland that we saw on Monday, which felt more like a sandbox game more than anything. We get a number of planets and a number of missions on those planets, but that's really it. You don't step on those planets unless there is something there, and even then, you might only find one facility that you need to visit. There's no open worlds to visit and explore other than in the DLC pack with that human robot crap or whatever the fuck it is. Basically, the world doesn't have that open feeling that you would expect from a massive RPG game. Ranking up your characters boiled down to what powers do you like better, and do you want them to have a second outfit on. Weapons were restricted per character into a weapon type, and even your choices, like the Paragon Renegade issue that I mentioned earlier, limit your RPG elements. I know this game wants to be classified as a Western RPG, but it's a far cry from the Japanese RPG games that started the genre all those years ago. The free will, the free roam ideas of other RPGs are not available here as well. It's a decision-based game. That's it. Defined by a few key decisions that you made along the way that will affect the ending of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, the content is great, but as an RPG game, it really skirts around that description. There's little relation to the traditional terms of RPG games, and the only few elements that it does offer still limits your choices overall, regardless of the flaws. There's no question, Mass Effect 2 went above and beyond improving the game over the original. Almost every aspect of this game was improved, just based on the mechanics, the character models, to the powers, combat, the exploration of the galaxy in certain ways, where you can now see which planets you fucking visited as opposed to in the prior game where you just didn't know where the fuck you were. Oh man, thank God for that shit. Plus they got rid of the Mako missions. That alone was a big improvement. Listen, PlayStation 3 didn't get a great port of the game, but it's still great enough to be another one of the games that I got a platinum trophy on while I earned playing this motherfucker. I didn't earn many platinum trophies in my games. You've seen this. Through 55 games, I earned a total of 6 platinum trophies, but the ones that I did earn were for games that I played and that I really enjoyed. I mean, shit, how many times do you think I would play a campaign 4 times through? Not many, believe me. I didn't play campaigns 4 times over in any games. Well, maybe aside from Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. Oh man, those shits are fun. But anyway, After playing all 3 of these games, although I didn't do it in chronological order, I can say this one offered up the best game in the series, easily. Mass Effect 1 got things started, but it really needed help in some of the combat sections of the game. Mass Effect 2 improved on almost everything, and tomorrow's video added the most addicting co-op portion of any game, and this leads me into tomorrow's video. Finally, after 49 videos in the series, Mass Effect 3 is finally showing up, my most played game, and it's finally going to get its proper goodbye. I can finish off RPG Week with one of the most polarizing games ever made, so that will be tomorrow's video, and that's going to be another long-ass video. So bring your popcorn, because tomorrow's video is going to be part rant and part praise for the game that I spent a total of 50 plus in-game days playing. I'm not bullshitting you on that one. 50 plus days playing that game. I seriously played that shit more than any other game, so of course it's going to get its proper goodbye. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit, and tomorrow will be Mass Effect 3.